Good morning, Olive Branch family, and welcome to our online service. My name is Jeremiah. I'm the Youth and Young Adults Pastor here at the Olive Branch, and Pastor Ken started 2024 in a series titled Top 4 in 2024, and he started it off with a topic of peace. If you haven't watched it yet, you can definitely watch online or as well as on Spotify, and you can be able to relive that sermon. But today, Pastor Ken's going to be talking about health. So before we go into the message, our worship team is going to lead us in song. So let's just praise God. Let's worship Him. Let's have an amazing Sunday. God bless you. Happy New Year. It's never too late to be wishing you a Happy New Year. And we hope that you have an amazing Sunday. God bless.
All my words fall short. I've got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do. Every song must end, and you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah. Except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I've got one response. I've got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, got nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, come on, my soul, don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my soul, don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Oh, come on, my soul, don't you get shy on me, lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, got nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
So we started into this series of talks, and I tried to think of the top 4 things that we probably could talk about, top 4 concerns that you might have for this new year, 2024. And so I came up with peace, health, money, and love. And the question in all of these is like, what is God's part in this and what is my part in this? So that's why I've titled things, Let's Make a Deal. So sometimes we think, okay, well, God, I'll do this if you do this, and sometimes it just doesn't work that way. So I want to talk about health today. And if you're thinking about health and you're looking at my shirt, and you're starting to get dizzy and sick to your stomach, I'll wear something new next time. I just promise that. Wear my sneakers because I'm talking about health. Just want to make sure that we're all inclusive here, okay, when it comes to this stuff. Now, let me start like this. How many of you can remember your grandparents talk about going to the gym or, going to the fitness center or anything like that? Most of us had grandparents who thought, well, when the car's invented, why should I have to walk? I mean, they didn't talk about that stuff. Some of us had parents who didn't talk about it that much either, and they probably should have, because this was an era, when my dad was in the Navy, when they handed out cartons of cigarettes, to everybody. It's kind of a freebie. Now, this has become a huge obsession in our culture, and I'm guessing that you probably have talked to some of your friends about it. And if you went through COVID, you maybe got through into some serious arguments with friends, maybe lost some friends over, whether you should get a vaccine, what about the whole thing of, distancing and things like that. Could be that you have health challenges that have come down through your family, and man, it's front and center there because you have people who have died of things and you're concerned about them. And then you add TV to that mix. I mean, it's hard to watch TV for several hours without running into ads about, first of all, foods that will kill you, and then, of course, fitness clubs and things that you need to do. The Peloton, people who, all these excitable people who sweat, and are all excited about it. I mean, I sweat, but I'm not excited about it. And then Google. I mean, if you've ever had like a problem and you've Googled it, and to see what's going on, and then they will feed you more because of, just the way it's all set up, all the algorithms and so on, and they will send you more information, and it's like too much information. And then, of course, you get all the, stuff that they have on TV, about adult diapers and things. Oh, I don't want to go there. I want to die before that happens. So there's just all of this stuff. And then there's CP24, and you watch CP24, and the people that you watched and you liked who acted in shows, acted in movies, and sang songs that you like, they're dying, and they're younger than you. So in our culture, we talk about it a lot. Fitness is a big deal in our culture. Health is a big deal. So here's the deal. Here's the bottom line. I believe that God cares about our bodies, and He has given us some information. He's given us wisdom to know how to take care of them, and He also brings healing to our body, which is kind of the temporary vehicle that we take through life. So what I'd like to do is I want to kind of start with an image, which you know that I many times do, and that image is a van that we had. We'll talk about your health, and it comes with a van that we used to have. It was a 2000 Nissan Quest van. Now, we bought this from Lori's dad, and honestly, it was a lemon. I mean, we paid too much for it, and it was a lemon. Like, we had problems with it from the get-go. They'd had an accident with it, and it was leaking through the back and rusted all the, jack and all that stuff that's in the back trunk and so on. So it was kind of a lemon to start with. And then we had problems with the timing chain. I don't know if you know anything about timing chains or not, but it's like kind of an essential part of the engine. Like, your engine can't run right and will ultimately, put a rod through the cylinder if your timing chain is off. So had to get that fixed. Cost a lot of money. So we thought, okay, well, that's that. Well, we waited several months, maybe a couple years, and the timing chain went again, okay, on this Nissan Quest. So, we took the thing to this guy to fix it and so on, and he kind of insulted me. Like he says, has anybody here ever heard of anything like changing your oil? Well, I thought, well, that's insulting. I used to change my own oil before Mr. Lube showed up on the scene. But, there were a number of different things. We found out from, just doing some research that there was a quality control defect when it came to the timing chain on this engine, okay? So let's say, for example, that I didn't maintain it enough, so I didn't change the oil long enough, so it was under-maintained. And then the third thing, really, we used that thing like a truck. Like they told us it had a truck chassis on it, and we used it like a truck. We, really ran it into the ground. So if you have quality control, that fits us. We have quality control. We have defects in us, right? Some have been passed down through our generations. We tend to be under-maintained, which is a problem, and then sometimes we tend to overwork. Like when you under-maintain and overwork, that creates problems. And so we end up sometimes with health problems, okay? So that's the way it works. So I just thought, well, these things kind of fit us, kind of fit where we find ourselves. Now, let's just start here. The human body is amazing. So just say that with me. The human body is amazing. Say this will make you feel better. My body is amazing. No matter how you feel about your body today, you have to admit that your body is amazing no matter how you're feeling about it. It's irreplaceable. It is just magnificent. It's flexible, it's pulsing, it's growing all the time, it's taking care of all the stuff. It has, plumbing built into it, and it has air conditioning built into it, and heating built into it, all these things, And then it's very complicated. It has thousands of miles of blood vessels and nerve endings and so on. And, when you eat it, you maintain it by, eating and so on, and you feed it, it starts out with 2 cells, and then it grows into like 36 trillion cells. And if you're a big person, maybe 37 trillion. If you're a small person, maybe 34 trillion. You feed it with hamburgers, and you feed it with bananas and a little quinoa and a little bit of kale and stuff like this, And it's just amazing, okay? It's sensitive, and yet it's resilient. Now, here's the problem. It's also vulnerable, and sometimes it breaks down. But your body isn't just flesh and blood. We're emotional. There are things that go on in the interior of us, like hate and love and loneliness and so on, that affect our health in very distinct ways. I heard one person say, that it's actually healthier to eat donuts with friends than it is to eat broccoli alone. And it's probably true. Loneliness actually contributes to the deterioration of our body. And that fits, doesn't it? Jesus said, love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. And when he said that, it all fits together. All the parts of our bodies fit together. All the parts of our lives fit together, and they create health. Health of our heart and soul and strength and mind is impacted adversely when we give in to guilt and worry and stress. And that's why we're told, live by faith in God. Let God forgive you. Forgive other people. Get rid of the junk. Get rid of the poison that's affecting you. Worry runs in my family. I don't know if you have that, but there's actually a worry gene. I'm not sure exactly what the numbers on it are, but my grandmother had it. She worried about everything, I think I've told you this. They bought a dog. She paced the floor all night worrying that the dog would grow up and bite somebody. So it wasn't real surprising when she died at the age of 61 of Alzheimer's. And I'm telling you, she looked like she was 80. Worry affects your health. Jesus said, if I were you, I wouldn't worry. Everything's going to be fine. God is watching over you and taking care of you. Now, the first clue that God really cares about my health and cares about your health actually comes from the Scriptures, and it's early on in the Bible. It's in the book of Exodus, where God says, I am the God who heals you. We didn't ask him to do this. We didn't say, God, I know you're powerful, all powerful and all, but would you also be the God who heals us? No, he said he was going to do that. Listen to what he said. If you will listen carefully to the voice of the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, obeying his commands and keeping all his decrees, then I will not make you suffer any of the diseases I sent on the Egyptians. And they'd seen that firsthand with the plagues. For I am the Lord who heals you. Now, two observations about this promise. First of all, it's made to the Israelites, okay? So it's always a little bit dangerous to take a promise that's made to somebody else and apply it to yourself. Now, the second observation is that what God says isn't disposable. So what he's saying here, it has effects on our daily life. And what's interesting is that, the Jewish people, the Israelites, they got all obsessed about all the, the nuts and bolts of these commandments, thinking that this was about religion when it was really about health. A lot of it was about health. For example, cleanliness, God, gave them a heads up on some of the health issues. And I'm telling you, it was millennia ahead of its time. He said, don't wear clothes that have mildew in them. Don't stay in a place that has mold in it. Well, we know that, but back then that was not common knowledge. He says, be careful what you eat, about where you actually get it from, because it can be contaminated, or, there's other stuff that comes along. So don't eat these things because you could die from it. He said, and I don't mean to be gross, but he says, bury your excrement. Don't leave it out there. It can contaminate. Keep your hands and your face clean. It says, make sure you wash your dishes, because disease and contamination, bacteria can get down into the cracks of dishes. Don't eat from cracked dishes. So it's not a religious thing. That's a health thing. That's a physical thing. And there's even a health precaution in the Big Ten, where God gives 10 commandments, and one of them is take a break. Observe a Sabbath. Take a day off every week. Don't work 24/7 or it'll kill you. Now, down through the years, and especially in our day, all kinds of weirdness has actually surrounded how people thought about and talked about their bodies. One of the things that came on early on in Christianity, and actually kind of got molded into Christianity, was a thing called Gnosticism, which basically said that the body was not worth anything. Devalue the body. The flesh is evil. Only spirit is good. Now, to some extent, that sounds spiritual, but it's off. It's way off. God taught us. He created our bodies, and he taught us to value them. And it got back into how people thought about it, where they would go and they would abstain from anything that was fun, anything that tasted good. They would, get themselves away from other people and live in loneliness, thinking that doing without sex, doing without food, doing without friends was like pleasing to God. And it wasn't. It had nothing to do with God. Now, how many of you think, it's called asceticism, how many of you think that we have that problem now in 2024, the Greater Toronto area? I don't think we do. I really don't think we do. In fact, it's more like we're obsessed with our bodies. We're obsessed with pleasure. Now, let's get some clarity on, and this is where I think a lot of times people think in terms of fitness, and it really has more to do with appearance than it does with health. Appearance is about the outside, and how impressed other people are with the outside of your body, and how hot you are, and how buff you are, and all that stuff. And people have literally lived out the saying, I'd die to have a body like that. A lot of people have. A lot of teenage girls have almost killed themselves with eating disorders, trying to have a body like somebody who starved themselves and worked at their shape professionally. The other detour, as I see it, is people who are health obsessed. God has given you a body not to be obsessed with it, not to miss the point of light, but it's the vehicle that takes you through life. It's intended to be taken care of. And people, I'm sure you know some, maybe you are one, and you obsess about the air, and you obsess about germs and about vitamins, fitness, and you nag about it and talk about it and rattle on and on about all the stuff that you've read about it, and it's like 24/7. Created conflict over it, maybe. That is not the point of health, okay? You may be the healthiest person on your block, and you may be too busy to do the one thing that God said to do. The one thing that will help you to make a difference in your world, and that is to love other people. You can get too busy obsessing over your own body and health than to actually love other people. And if that's what's happened, you lose the plot. That's not what God intended. It's not what he ever intended. So here's the deal. God does care about your body, and so if he cares about my body, well, I ought to care about it too, right? I want to ask you, how do you feel about your body? How do you feel about your body? See, how you take care of it, is going to affect that. And speaking of on behalf of the God who thought it up and created it, and the prophets and the writers of scriptures and all these, they have some really wise things to say. For example, Psalm 139. See how you fit this. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body. You knit me together in my mother's womb. thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. And some people would say, well, yeah, you made me complex. That means there's more things to go wrong. It says, your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. Now, can you say your workmanship is marvelous? Let's just say it together, okay? Whether you're in your living room or wherever you are, your workmanship is marvelous. And that needs to be your perspective, no matter what your body looks like. See, because ultimately you have to accept what you have to work with. And the alternative of that is basically being jealous of other people and hating them because they got the body that you wish you had, or they got the hair that you wish you had, or the skin that you wish you had, or maybe even being upset with God because he didn't give you a body like somebody else's. I mean, how can you respect and love God if you hate what he's given you and given you to live in? There's another question to bring perspective. Who do you belong to? See, there's some discussion around this because our world system basically says, you belong to yourself. It's your body. You do what you want with it. Well, God begs to differ with that because the Spirit of God, through Paul, says, do you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price. And so you must honor God with your body. Now, the world system basically says, do what you want. What God says is treat your body with respect. Somebody wrote a song about that once. All the dietary and cleanliness laws that I mentioned deal with this. If you want your body to work well, like your car, like your home, like your computer, like your cell phone, lawnmower, and so on, you just got to take care of it. You got to take care of it. Garbage in, garbage out. And God is interested in preventative maintenance. That's why he told us, take a day off every week because your body needs it. Now, the guidelines on exercise in the Bible are not as noticeable. There's no verse there that says, thou shalt exercise, do, 46 sit-ups every day, and 34 push-ups, or it doesn't say that, okay? But it's interesting that Paul uses a lot of athletic imagery, okay? He talks about, boxing, he talks about exercising, he talks about running races and discipline. And he says this to Timothy, his understudy, who's apparently into fitness too. He says, physical exercise has some value, but spiritual exercise is much more important, for it promises a reward in this life and the next. Physical exercise promises a reward in this life. You live healthier, you live longer. Now, the word Paul uses for physical exercise here is the word gymnazo. Now, can anybody guess what word we get from that? It would be gymnasium. And, of course, this is a big deal in a culture that kind of invented the Olympics. And he says there's some value in this, going to the gym, keeping your body healthy. And he later on tells us what the point of this. He says, I make my body my servant. Now, if you begin to get to the point where you're serving your body, well, that's kind of the wrong perspective. You have to make your body your servant. And the way we're made is that, there's not going to be too many of us that are going to live past 100. If you know Ann Eisen, her dad just lived to be almost 102. Now, I look at my life and say, I don't want to live that long. Maybe some of you feel the same way. But the truth is, I'm probably not going to live that long. Probably, if the odds are right, neither are most of you. The point is, we have a limited amount of time to use our body, and we have to make sure that we take care of it so that we can use it to the fullest extent. There's another really important principle to understand when it comes to your health, and it might be a surprise to you. It's called sexual purity, okay? And I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm just saying that that's part of living a healthy life, and it affects every part of your life. It's not just your body, It's not like eating. It affects your soul, it affects your heart, it affects your emotions, it affects how you treat other people. It's a big deal. And so again, we're going to talk about that at some other time. Another biblical principle that fits a lot of what we do in life, Paul writes about this, says, I'm allowed to do anything, but I reply, not everything is good for you. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. I had this uncle that I loved, Uncle Gil, and he came to my sister's wedding and was carrying an oxygen pack on his back because he'd gotten lung disease, lung cancer. And he said to me, and this was just so brilliant. He said, Ken, I smoked cigarettes every day of my life. I enjoyed every one of them. And now, he said, I have to pay. And that's just the way it works, right? if you do something that's going to hurt your health, then you have to pay. And it fits everything that has the potential to, harm your health long term. Sometimes people say, you know what, this is fun, this feels good, I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do that because it's too much work. Well, you pay for that, okay? You don't have to do it. God isn't going to kick you out of heaven because you don't. But you have to pay the price for that, okay? And here's the question. Why would you want to gamble with your health to just do what you want to do? Do what you feel like doing at the time. I mean, nobody wants to run out of money when they're 60, and if you don't want to run out of money when you're 60, then you have to make some provision for that. It's called savings, okay? You don't want to run out of health or run out of breath when you're 60 and have people, pushing you down the street. If you don't want that, then you have to make provisions for that, and that's called taking care of your body. One more principle. Don't look for clues in our culture on what to do or how to live, And Paul also talks about this, Romans 12. He says, don't copy the behavior and the customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And this gets into the whole issue, I think, of appearance versus health. And you can get shoved into the mold on this thing and get way off course and obsess about that. Now, that's the whole thing. And if you've got to have a perfect body, and if you're going to exercise, if that's going to become the whole thing of fitness, then you have to understand that someday this is like it's all going to wear out. Like, we don't live forever. And before we die, we start to age. Everything starts to head for the ground. We begin to sag, and droop and leak and stuff. That's just part of life. And if you're all about your appearance, it's going to be very disappointing when you get past a certain age because things just don't cooperate with you anymore. And part of the way to deal with this is basically saying, God, here's my body, here it is, such as it is, how much hair I have and my legs, feet, and everything like that. So I just give it to you. I want to use it in a way that brings you pleasure and helps me to be able to do what I'm supposed to do. Now, here's a question I want to ask you, okay? Talking about health, talking about fitness, how many of you would say, other people see me as a healthy, maybe even athletic person? I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands on that because just several years ago, I was at a seminar held by this guy, Jack Groppel, and this is a great book, by the way, if you want a book on fitness that I think is probably doable. It's called The Corporate Athlete. And so he had us all take, there's about 25 of us, and he had us all fill out a questionnaire before we actually went into the room when he talked about it. And he said, 70% of you said that other people would see you as a healthy, perhaps athletic person. And he chuckled. He said, only 10% of you, based on everything else you said, are actually healthy or athletic in any sense of that term. But that's the way it works. We tend to overestimate how good we are, how slim we are, all this stuff. The stats say that, we Canadians spend $1.7 billion a year on vitamins, okay? And then it says that we spend about $42 billion on fitness club memberships. We spend about $7 billion on diets. I mean, we throw a lot of money at this stuff. Now, here's the companion question. So, we're called to love others as we love ourselves. How much money do we spend actually helping others? That would be an interesting comparison, wouldn't it? I don't know. I'm just asking. So, here's where I'm at. I don't think you need to spend a lot of money on this. I mean, this is something here that can help you. These things don't cost a lot. You can do this just about anywhere in your home. We have to have something that motivates us. And here's my motivation. I'm not afraid to die. I know I'm going to die someday, and I know that for me to be absent from this body, as Paul says, is being present with the Lord. I know that. What I'm afraid of is half dying, like getting to the point where I can't get myself around, and other people have to take care of me, because I'm half dead. Now, I've had several wake-up calls down through life, okay? And some of you have had the same thing. So we're just talking about the alarm clock here or the phone, okay? First one was when I was about 20, I shaved off my beard, and I found another chin underneath that. And I thought to myself, okay, there are people in this world who can eat whatever they want to eat, and they're going to stay slim. I'm not one of them. So that was my first realization. When I was about 21, I was in a bad accident that caused some back and neck and hip pain and stuff. And a chiropractor said to me, he says, you need to do some sit-ups and push-ups. Now, whether or not that was the right advice, that's what I've been doing, strengthening my core. I had friends that hurt themselves by lifting things. I thought, okay, I don't want to do that because it takes a long time to recuperate from, so I got to build this core strength, you know. If you would talk to Lori, and I would suggest that you not do that, she would tell you that when we first met, you know, I was kind of a nut when it came to not eating greasy food and fried foods and stuff like this and eating roughage. See, I'd read this book called The Save Your Life Diet, which talked about roughage and everything like that. So some people, you know, in seminary kept potato chips and they kept candy bars and all that stuff in their room stash. My stash was made up of prunes, raisins, and carrots. I know, I'm weird, okay? And it worked out pretty good. It got me in trouble one time when they served for brunch these greasy sausages, and I'd been on a roughage binge the night before, you know, and I was rolling on the floor in my dorm room praying for Jesus to take me home. But my biggest wake-up call was when my dad went in for bypass surgery. And I kind of did, you know, this family math, you know. His dad died at 47 of a heart attack. His brother died at 55 of a heart attack. His mom died at 61, and he started having problems when he was 57. And I'm thinking, I'm not that far away from that. And so I started running for my life. And that's exactly what I do, you know. I run for my life. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is just pay attention to the wake-up calls. Pay attention to the alarm clock. Pay attention, you know, to the cell phone calls and the texts and all these things that are trying to tell you, take care of your body. Now, in this book, Jack Groppel says, this does not have to cost you a lot of money, and it doesn't have to take half of your day. He says, and that's what makes me that's what makes his book so great, is that what he's saying is doable. And he's not talking about having six-pack abs and killer buns and all the other stuff. He's talking about just basic fitness stuff, about health and energy. You know, and Jack says, you don't need to join a health club. You don't need to go on a special high-protein diet, you know, and check your blood pressure every day. The stats say that what we consume is a problem, right? North Americans, I saw this a number of years ago, eat 45 large bags of potato chips every year. The average North American has 120 orders of French fries every year, 190 candy bars every year, 120 desserts every year, and 150 slices of pizza. Now, you know, Canadians would say, well, I'm a North American, but I don't do that. Well, you know, let's put it this way, okay? Timmy's and, you know, the Starbucks Queen is doing just fine. They're doing great. A few things I learned about myself. First, I used to pride myself in not eating breakfast. I'm thinking, I'm going to not gain weight because I don't eat breakfast. Well, I found out something that right before I went to write a message, I was starving my brain. That's not a good thing to do, okay? See, when we don't feed our body, the opposite actually happens. When we don't feed it, it basically says, uh-oh, we've got a crisis here. This person is starving. Store fat so that they'll have it, okay? So it actually works against you. And I learned you have to be careful what you eat and how often you eat so that you can, you know, store the energy you need. I mean, pythons, they can eat a whole pig at one sitting, but then they lay around for several weeks until they can actually move again, okay? We're not pythons. And so we just need to remember that. There's another thing I found out, and that is, you know, in this book it says that the stomach has a shutoff valve, but it takes 15 minutes to notify the brain, hey, there's enough down here, you know? And so if we don't hear that, so we have to be careful because we'll just keep on eating. One more thing, and if you're expecting exercise, hear about exercise, the point is you need it. You need it. Everybody does. Everybody does, okay? One guy I heard said that he started out by driving to the gym every day, and he would go and he would open the door to the gym and then close it again, you know. And then he would tell his friends, I went to the gym this morning, okay? And then he eventually got to the point where he would, you know, go in and do, you know, I don't know what he did, 5 push-ups, 5 sit-ups, and then he'd take a shower and go home. And then he'd, you know, run 20 yards, and then he would go home. And he just built it up. And the point is, you start where you are. That's the point. You have to start where you are. Health, you see, is not a sprint. It's not like, okay, swimming season is coming, so I got to get in shape, and I got to lose this weight, and I got to get all fit and stuff. That's not going to work. because you'll get sore and then you'll quit, okay? It has to fit your schedule and it has to fit your budget. I mean, you can tell I'm not a showpiece for health, but I do exercise every day. It takes about 30 minutes in my office. Now, if you work at Walmart, they may have a problem if you go out in the aisles and you're doing your sit-ups and push-ups out there. You just have to find something that works for you and something that can help you to get in a rut. That's what you have to do. You have to get in a rut. We get in a rut in other things. Get in a rut in this. And then one final thing, you need rest and you need sleep. So I can't remember exactly what I've put here, okay? But I'm just going to show you. Do your best, don't obsess. That's important advice. And then this final one, and I got this one from Rick Warren. Divert daily, withdraw weekly, that's the Sabbath, abandon annually. And that's good advice. We live in a world that is chronically sleep deprived. You look at any of the stats on this, and we are chronically sleep deprived, okay? We GTAers are, notorious about, thinking that we can cheat ourselves on sleep and still live a healthy life and get more done and stay healthy. And neither one of those things happen because this principle is one that is built into this world. You need a break. You need a break. David put it like this. He says, in vain you rise early, stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for he grants sleep to those he loves, talking about God. And the reality, according to the best researchers, tell us that we need 8 hours of sleep a night. We do. The health stats say that sleep deprivation actually compromises your health, your immune system. It increases, your risk of heart disease. It increases your risk of strokes, diabetes, obesity, and just about most of the other bad stuff that you don't want. We have a rhythm, and the rhythm is sleep, work, relax. Sleep, work, relax. And if you get your rest, not only will you be healthier, if you don't get your rest, you're going to spend your time, spinning your tires because you can't think straight. You get more done in less time. And the problem is, it becomes kind of a cultural thing. In the GTA, it's kind of cool, to come in with your puffy red eyes and talk about, how much sleep you didn't get, and how hard you work and so on. But you can't cheat the Sandman. Sandman is this invisible person who manages sleep, puts sand in your eyes so that they're a little bit gritty in the morning. So take care of yourself, Divert daily, withdraw weekly, abandon annually. Now, for just a few minutes in closing, I'd like to talk about healing, supernatural healing, if that's okay. If I talked about supernatural healing, 75 years ago, 100 years ago, right in the middle of the whole modern movement and stuff like this, people would have snickered or thought I was weird or something like that. Not anymore. According to the stats, people now actually, believe in healing power of personal prayer. They believe that somebody, when they pray to God for somebody who is seriously ill, that it actually makes a difference. Some would actually say that they would like to have their doctor pray with them. Now, the problem with this stuff is that a lot of it doesn't have anything to do with God. It's more magic. It has to do with Wicca or New Age or something like that, as opposed to actually coming to God, the one who created your body, actually healing it. And there's some very, very weird things out there when it comes to this whole deal. So again, it's magic. Magic is not what the Bible talks about when it talks about supernatural healing. Now, Jesus, without a doubt, he was the most powerful person who ever showed up on this planet. We know that. I mean, he healed anything. This was not like, migraine headaches and lower back pain. This was about healing somebody whose body had been rotting away because of leprosy. Somebody who had been their whole life begging for money because they were paralyzed. It was people who were blind, people who were deaf, people who were demon-possessed. And with a word, many times, he just stopped the whole thing and made them well, made them hop. And then to kind of top it off near the end of his life, a friend of his had died and had been 4 days in the grave, like he was smelling because he was decaying. Jesus called him, and he came out of the grave alive. Jesus' power is unparalleled. Now, a few facts about sickness and health. God created the earth perfect. You know that. When he made it, it was perfect. He made it disease-free, no defects, no death. But he warned us that to rebel against him was going to create a problem. It was going to cause death. So we kind of took a gamble and said, well, no, let's give it a shot. So we rebelled, and so we now are under the sagging weight of all this stuff that's been happening for thousands of years. One of the things that healing gurus say today is that all of the parts of our body, body, mind, and spirit are all interconnected. They affect each other, affect our health. And that's absolutely true. But, this was said a long time before they said it, okay? Back, in the Old Testament, it said, love God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind. That's what this is about. They're all connected in loving God. You do a little bit of research, and you notice that one of the leading causes of illness and death is anxiety and guilt and hatred and stress. And that's why, God says, I'm going to forgive you, forgive other people. Let go of the junk, just let it go. Here's another interesting fact. If you're a part of a church community and you gather regularly with other people to draw comfort and strength and faith and perspective, you're going to be more healthy. The stats say that, okay? You're 3 times more likely to survive a health crisis in your life. You have lower blood pressure. You have half the risk of dying of heart disease than those who don't worship. Respecting God, loving God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and doing it as He says to do it, has an impact on your health. Third thing is that the name of Jesus means Savior. Jesus, the anointed King, the Christ, in charge of everything, who says it's all going to be okay. If I were you, I wouldn't worry. He's the one who showed up here. And one of the things He did was attack the health problems in His world. Jesus was not just the healer of broken souls. He was the healer of broken bodies, and He still heals. He still heals. Isaiah, who prophesied this coming Messiah and said that He was going to be called the Wonderful Counselor, like you will not be able to match His advice. He's going to be, everlasting Father. He's never going to go away. He's never going to die. He's going to be mighty God, has all the power. He's the Prince of Peace. He's going to bring peace to your heart. He said this, but He was pierced for our rebellion. He was crushed for our sin. He was beaten so that we could be whole, and He was whipped so that we could be healed. When Jesus healed people, it was an expression of the compassion of God and His healing of this world, something that is one day going to be totally complete. Now, here's our problem. Our problem is Jesus is right here, right now, wherever you happen to be, this very minute. We can't see Him, we can't talk to Him, we can't touch Him, but He told His disciples, He said that they were going to be His sent ones. They were going to be His people He was going to send into the world to, heal people, to raise the dead, and to cast out demons. And they were given power to do just that, and they did. But none of them are here, okay? What we have are the words of Jesus through His half-brother, James, who became the leader in the early church. And he's the one that originated the whole discussion on peace that we had last week. And this is what he writes near the end of his letter. Listen to what he says, very important. Are any of you sick? You should call for the elders of the church to come and pray for you. And he's talking about the leaders. Anointing you with oil in the name of the Lord. Such a prayer offered in faith will heal the sick, and the Lord will make you well, and if you've committed any sins, you will be forgiven. Confess your sins to each other. In other words, get rid of the poison and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The earnest prayer of a righteous person has great power and produces wonderful results. And so this morning, there's not going to be a single person here in the gathering that we have who would claim to be a righteous person. But what we're going to do in our gathering is simply follow these instructions that have been left for the church of Jesus Christ. If you need healing, if you need God to touch your body or touch somebody you love, then ask. Ask somebody to anoint you and pray for you. Now, just a couple of clues, okay? First, healing is not a substitute for medical intervention. Never said, if you ask for healing, don't ask for a doctor. Well, that's not true. Because Luke was a doctor, and he went along with Paul on all of his journeys, okay? Second thing is, sometimes God chooses not to heal a person. The answer we want is yes. But no is an answer. Or not yet is an answer. And we have to somehow be willing to be submitted to God on this. Paul, who had healed many, many, many people in his career, he asked God, he said, I would like healing from this particular, he called it a thorn. God said, no. And his reasoning is, My strength is made perfect in weakness. He said, my grace is sufficient for you. In other words, I'm going to give you grace. I will help you through this. So God wants to do one of two things. He either wants to heal you, or he wants you to give you the grace that will help you through it. Third thing is that sickness and health are not a sign that you've sinned against God. Yes, sin has resulted in all the sickness and chaos and stuff like that we hear. But Jesus was very clear when his disciples said, so did he sin or his parents sin so that he's like this? He said, neither one of them did. He said, this is so that God can somehow be glorified. So sometimes, we have a problem because of our lifestyle, but sin is not, okay, God's spanking you because you've been a bad person. Number 4, healing is not about how much faith you have. And I know that some people say, well, no, it's about how much faith. Well, it's not really about how much faith you have. It's about who your faith is in. Because, you can say, I have no faith in myself. I don't even have faith in the medical system, so I'm going to put my faith in you, and it's in an all-powerful God who can do anything. Number 5, every person that Jesus healed died of something. I don't know about you, but I've never met a person who says, yeah, I've been living ever since, like 30 AD when Jesus, healed me, and I've been healed ever since. Everybody dies of something. Healing is simply a temporary stopgap measure so that we can carry on and do what we're supposed to do. And as I've already brought up, Jesus didn't heal everyone. He just didn't. There were times when he walked into a whole bunch of people who were broken physically, and he healed one person. Why? I don't know. I don't have a clue. But sometimes he used lots of different methods. One time, he made some mud, spit in the dirt, made some mud, and put it on a guy's eyes, and he was healed. Other times he spoke. Sometimes he healed from a distance. He told, a Roman centurion, he says, go home. He says, your servant is healed. He did lots of different things. And sometimes a person wasn't healed completely the first time. There was one person, blind person he healed, and he says, I see people walk around, but it looked like trees. They're just blurry images. And Jesus touched him again to heal him. And this is so important. This is the final thing, is healing is not magic. It's not about, I prayed the right prayer and I got it, or I had, mustered up the right kind of faith, or I said things in the right order, or I pushed the right buttons. Healing is not about that. It's not magic. It's something that God does for us as an act of compassion. And it can't be demanded, and it can't be earned. It's a gift. It's a gift. In his earlier passage, James says that sometimes we don't have because we just never ask. We never ask. He says, why don't you ask? Why don't you ask God? Maybe the outside of you really looks great because it's all shined up and it's buff and it's fit, but inside there's something that is wrong, and doesn't have to do with your organs. It has to do with your soul. God heals that. Many times he heals that before he heals the outside. And it could be that maybe you'd have to say, you know what, I am responsible for a lot of what's going on in my body. I treated my body like an amusement park instead of a temple of the Holy Spirit. It doesn't stop God. God is able to do whatever he needs to do, but sometimes you need to confess that and correct it. Or maybe you're just in pain and you need God to heal you. Ask him. Bible says that the sensible thing, the logical thing to do, the smartest thing you'll ever do is to present your body to God and tell him it's yours. Why don't you do that right now? Why don't you do that right now? God, we give ourselves to you. We realize that we have so little control over our health. We have so little control over the things in our lives. But you see us. You know us. You care about us. You know our names. You know what the physical problems really are and what we think they are. You know everything about us. It's not like you even need X-ray vision to see that. You just see it all. You know it all. And you are able, with your power, to heal us. You wanted to do that 2,000 years ago through your son Jesus. You still want to do that. And so we present ourselves to you. Amen. When it comes to your health, may God give you the power and the strength to say yes, what you need to say yes to, and no to what you need to say no to. Amen.